Hey, what's going on, family? It's me, baby girl Slaughter, Niecy Denise, back to do another video. I just literally logged off my laptop, and I wanted to jump on here really quick and just recap a couple things. So, I've been reading from Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids, right? And so we got up to where we're going to start talking about the asylums and the prisons. And let's just do a really quick, a recap. So the reason why I'm bringing this information to the forefront to talk about it to whoever will listen, right? Because not everybody has that same understanding and knowledge base, right? So I'm talking about this because I want to point to the fact that there is alternate history out there. Majority of people have been grafted and groomed into this so-called quote unquote perversion, the life that we live. And so majority of people, all of us have been indoctrinated. Okay. And until you break free and start questioning the things that were given, you won't ever see that there's an alternate turn of events. The reason why I talk about the Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids is because it talks about the previous civilization prior to the mud flood, and then the reconstruction of the so-called world, especially here in the Americas. And then you have that whole quote unquote 1776, the founding fathers, the New World Order, Novo Saculum. It's on the back of the dollar bill. So, excuse me, there's no conspiracy. All right. The puzzle pieces are there. I'm just pointing some interesting things out so that you guys can go do your own research and, see it for what it is or not. Like I said, some of you will get it. Some of you won't. The majority of you will let it go right over your heads because you think it's for entertainment purposes only. So I'm only here for a certain few. So let's get into the next chapter, the asylum. And like I said, I love to read. Shout out to Chief Red Wolf. He's really assisted me in understanding some things. And so I'm just resharing this information because I find it fascinating. It is something that we all need to look at, especially if you are on that journey to break free from this quote unquote matrix or system. And, most people find this information entertaining. Some find it highly disturbing, and others will just say that it's pseudoscience. So I'm just giving you breadcrumbs. It's up to you to do your own research. Now, I'm getting into chapter 10, and we're going to talk about the asylums. All right. So it says, until the 1800s, the mentally unwell were usually cared for by their friends and family. But all of a sudden, dozens of quote unquote, purpose-built facilities popped up almost overnight. The first asylum opened in England in 1247 to give refuge to the quote unquote mentally ill. Okay. It was called Bethlehem and was part of the priory of the New Order of Our Lady of Bethlehem, located in the city of London. Today, this is better known as Bedlam. Okay. Bedlam was moved to Mooresville Hospital in 1667, but after just 100 years, it was considered to be in such a disrepair with estimated repair costs at 1.2 million lire in today's market, or in today's money. It was demolished and relocated once again after that. The cost of the building at a brand new facility would have outweighed the repair bill. So why was it really destroyed? Okay. It says insane asylums were notorious for their harsh treatments, including restraints, isolation, electrotherapy shock, ice baths, forced drugging, and even lobotomies. Okay. They were originally intended as places of refuge for people who were suffering, initially using moral treatment by giving patients respect, kindness, and the freedom to work and enjoy life. Unfortunately, once overcrowding became an issue, treatments began to slip back towards the previous practices, or so the story goes. And then the introduction of the 1845 Lunacy Act. I want y'all to go look that up on your tablets, your phones. 1845 Lunacy Act. And it gave permission for the inmates to be experimented on legally. In 1810, a paper called The Illustration of Madness, written by John Haslam, Haslam, Lam, an apothecary to Bedlam and leading psychiatrist of the early 19th century, detailed the case of James Tilly Matthews, who had been a patient in the hospital for some 10 years. Matthews, a former peace activist of the Napoleonic Wars, was confined to London's notorious Bedlam Asylum in 1797 for those who believing that his mind was under the control of the quote unquote heirloom. Okay. A terrifying machine with mesmeric rays and mysterious gases that were apparently brainwashing politicians and plunging Europe into the revolution, terror, and war. Tell you, they come up with all these, I hate to use that word, and I'm not, those so-called elites love to create chaos, fear, and then provide a solution, right? So it says, next page, the heirloom, quote unquote, was a 7 millimeter tall room surrounded by barrels of obnoxious gases and that were fed inside of various leather pipes. The controller of the device operated it in a similar way to a church organ. That sounds horrifying. Thus, being able to control the level of different gases emitted by depressing a series of levers and buttons. These gases were magnetically charged particles and were fired directly at the inmate. Matthews also believed that several of the machines, which were invented and produced in France, so they say, were now in circulation discreetly throughout the city of London. Okay. When used subtly, they caused amnesia and they can control the thoughts and actions of the individual. And when emitted en masse, or could create a very happy workforce inside some of England's most brutal and inhospitable workhouses. So you see, they've been doing experiments on us since the dawn of time, y'all. Okay. I mean, if you go back and you look at some of these papers and some of these things for the asylums, some of the stuff that they did to these people was just absolutely horrendous. And then they made it legal, you know? So this is what we're dealing with right now. We're still dealing with the madness, right? But it's more open now. See, they're doing experiment on all of us. It's not just those that are underground and those that are in the asylums. It's everywhere. Okay. So then it says, Matthew said that this device was being used all across France and Germany. So you had London, France, and Germany. This technique was known as pneumatic chemistry. However, those that had experienced it gave it the nickname lobster cracking. The narrative tells us that this device and this technique were merely in Matthew's mind, yet in dozens of inmates who also described the same 1 millimeter tall room along with the obnoxious gases being pumped in. Let me ask you something. What do y'all think that they are really doing to inmates right now? I've read some crazy stuff and seen some crazy videos I probably shouldn't have saw, but I'm just going to tell you, they've even had people where they take certain prisoners out of prison and they round them up in the middle of the night and they take them out and they ship them off into these so quote unquote laboratories or huge acred farms, and they release these prisoners out and these things come out and grab them. I know how it sounds, you guys, but I'm just simply telling you, there's been people that have worked at these institutions and they drop stuff. They say things, they record stuff that they shouldn't. And, you know, most people think it's for entertainment purposes only, but I'm telling you, they do a lot of crazy shit. They really do. We're just scratching the surface by reading this stuff, right? So then it says they called this stuff lobster cracking, right? So they said, the narrative is that there had inmates that described the same tall room, where they take them in and they shoot them up with gas and they pump the gas in, and none of the inmates had ever met or all were diagnosed with schizophrenia. So they just were playing all types of, experiments on these prisoners, right? Or I'm not going to say prisoners, these people that are in asylums, but yet truly they are prisoners at this point. So, you know, so they said that they were diagnosed with schizophrenia, right? So how many of these schizophrenics could describe and often draw the exact same thing remains yet another mystery. After 10 years of this legal battle, independent and private psychiatrists as well as doctors visiting Matthews was released and found it to be totally sane. Upon release, though, He built a fully working replica. Okay. And in more recent times, a game for the PC went on sale called Amnesia. A machine for pigs. Wow. Within the game is not only the heirloom, but you can also clearly see Tesla coils and Tartarian buildings everywhere. So they put this shit in the game. Y'all say, hey, Chief. The other said should be listening. They should be listening. Yeah, they really should be. So they came out with a PC game to emulate this stuff. So, I mean, come on. They put it in movies and TV, and this is a video game now. So now you got kids and teenagers and adults playing this game. So it says these buildings, the Tartarian buildings, the Tesla coil, this quote unquote amnesia pig in a machine game. All right. And it says they have a PC game out like this. So it says, is there yet another example of universal law? And them showing us the very things we're told are either just conspiracy theories or from the minds of madness. See, they have to tell us what they're going to do because they think they can avert karma by putting it out there in suggestion in movies and TV and shows and things like that, because we're conditioned to say, oh, that's just TV. That's not real. But truly, they are trying to avert karma by doing that. So once you understand these things, then you can kind of look at things and analyze them for what they are, right? So then it says the term lunatic, okay, comes from luna, meaning moon. And it was the general consensus that with each change in the moon cycles, people were susceptible to it and were literally insane. That's where they got that from. This is also where the mystical beast, the werewolf, originates from. Gotta go and build. Awesome, Chief. I'll be over there once I finish reading. And it says, and your work looks great, by the way. Just want you to know, build looking good. All right. So then it says, so it could be, all right, it could be said that those that are in balance with the planet, its sun and moon and cycles, are sensitive to shifts in electromagnetic energy produced and the push and pull of the tides. And we know that this is truly what's going on, right? I mean, we know that. If you've been following me and then you've been doing your own study and your own research, and you guys know we're electromagnetic beings. Y'all already know that. And you all know that these frequencies, the food, the water, the air, everything affects us across the board, whether people want to believe it or not. I'm not here to convince anybody anything. It's just simply up to people to go do their research, right? So then it says, to me, this suggests that people from the old world or previous civilizations, the Tartars, the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Moors, etc., okay, struggled with the changes the parasites had made, okay? After all that, they had turned centers of healings into churches, detune the organs, and replace the bells. So when you look at these grand buildings that I've dropped tons of pictures on and we're talking about, and I even did a short video over them, when you look at these buildings, you can tell that they have been retrofitted or changed, especially on the top, because they took the Tesla coils off, which was the free energy devices where they could harness the power from the ether, right? And then they removed the organs, because I still remember as a child, I'm 56. So I remember in the 70s, bells in downtown Louisville. I remember them ringing the bells. And I also remember going into these beautiful old churches, right, in downtown Louisville, where they still played organs. Okay. I remember that stuff. Nowadays, most people probably, my age or older, they may remember, but oftentimes people forget, right? So they use these now, they've repurposed these buildings. So we know that there were courthouses now, universities, now they're churches. They're part of the government collective, right? But they went in and they've updated or changed and took these bells and organs out. So now they just simply say they're churches, when they were really not churches in the beginning. They were healing centers, and they knew what the bells and the organs could do with the body and how it would heal the body, right? So I'm telling you, they do everything on purpose, but if you have the eyes to see it, you'll see it. So then it says, as well as this, they destroyed free energy and wiped the history. So they destroyed the history. They took the free energy down. They They chunk the bills, they detune the organs, right? So it's not a healing frequency anymore. It's more of a depression when you go in there. So they've really created this world, for the detriment of us. It's not for the betterment of anyone here in this planet right now. If you are, and I hate to use the word human, but I mean, for us, it's really a struggle at this point. And a majority of people don't see this stuff. They just really don't see it. So then it says, if you couldn't adapt, yet had to survive the reset and wars, you were sent to an asylum and kept well away from society. So if you didn't follow along with what they wanted you to learn and to follow along with the new world and the restructuring, and then they would swoop you up. Okay. And that's simply what would happen. They use prisons and asylums. And then if your children were 6 months or less, they would take the children. Anything older than that, well, you already know what they did with them. Okay. So it says you could be committed for a whole host of ridiculous reasons, which, as well as you never seeing freedom again, also meant that your children would become orphans and ultimately property of the state. We're not even going to get into CPS. I'm not even going to go there. I could do a whole hour to 2 hour talk on CPS and the horror and just the corruption within these organizations, right? I know you have some good people that work in all these establishments and these places, just like you have some good, decent, police officers, some good, decent judges, doctors, nurses. You do have good people in those positions, but then you do have a lot of people in those positions that should not be there. And that's my point. Okay. A few bad apples or more than a few bad apples is going to taint the whole lot. I'm just saying. So, and then it says, here are just some of the reasons that they would put you in an asylum. So it says being religious, being kicked in the head by a horse, reading novels, thinking too much, asthma, period pains, you having cramps or menstrual cramps, husband leaves you, you automatically check your ass in an asylum and you don't get out, son dying at war, fell off a horse in the war, back pain, grief, gunshot wound, jealousy, ill treatment by your husband. These reasons are more insane than the people they locked up. It would appear that almost anything other than towing the line and keeping your mouth shut, like what I'm doing now, they would throw my ass in the asylum, could get you committed for life. All right. And that's what they used to do. And they believe me, it's coming back around like that. They're locking stuff down. I'm telling you. This, along with all the civil wars, left a lot of orphan children in every English-speaking country in the world, as well as across Europe and Russia, too. I will go into greater detail about what happened to these orphans in the next chapter. All right. And then it says, at the start of the 1800s and just a few years after the reset, so quote unquote, the 1776 shit, okay, it says there were only a few thousand lunatics housed in Britain's asylums. But by the end of the century, this had increased to over 100,000 people. By 1904, America had committed over 150,000 people, and Germany had founded more than 400 asylums to cope with the demand, a demand that didn't exist before the reset. Now, do you see the pattern of what they're doing here, of what they've done in the past, what they will continue to do? I can already hear somebody going, why are we caring about what happened back then in the 1700s? Because everything plays a part. Your past is your present and will be the future. Your present is the past. Everything happens for a reason, and it's all by design. And if people can't really get their mind around it and grasp it, we're going to continue to have this problem. Things are going to continue to get worse. I'm just going to tell you. And it's no conspiracy, not pushing any fear. It's just, you can see it. I mean, it's right there. I mean, it's right in front of your face if you look. So then it says, the Californian gold rush of 1849 appears to be a pivotal moment in the opening of these facilities in America. Dozens of old world buildings were repurposed by the 1900s as demand had suppressed capacity. The number of people committed in America, okay, and more specifically California, was totally disproportionate to the population. When you consider this was only the Isle of Cali and its goddess was a Moor. So see, he's going again with this Moorish, he's pushing this Moor ideology when I truly tell you that the Moors are not the same as the American Indian, and they never will be. Two different people. And like Chief Red Wolf said, he just ducked out of this live, but he can even tell you that he has friends who are Moors. They know who we are, and they know that they're not the American Indian. You understand what I'm saying? Two different people. Just because you have brown skin does not mean you all come from the same lineage. All right. Just telling you. And most people are ignorant to the fact. So it was the Cali, Queen Khalifa was not a Moor princess. She was an American Indian. All right. She was American Indian. And, that's where you get the name California. I'm just telling you, Queen Khalifa. So, it says, it could well have been because it appears to have been a Tartarian stronghold. Okay. Even Australia began to commit people to these institutions again in very similar grandiose buildings. Their first asylum opened in 1878. Named the Ipswich Hospital, but it really was America that led the way. And here are just a few. So not only did they come in here and they unalived, our ancestors fought and fought and fought. And I guess they got tired. I'm just going to tell you, they fought. Okay. And then they rounded up quite a few of the tribes, right? Because you had some tribes that fought against each other before the Europeans showed up on the scene. You understand that, right? And so, they had people who were rounded up from just various tribes, and they were taken from here, put on ships, and shipped way across. That's where you've got people in Haiti and Jamaica and, Puerto Rico, just all over. They were shipped everywhere. Okay. Our people from here were shipped all over the world. Okay. History was told to us in reverse. They teach us that we came over on slave ships. No, they're the ones who came over on the ships, and they're the ones who rounded up people here and took them off. And yeah, you could say that they were indentured servants. You can say they were prisoners of war. And yeah, in some cases, they were laborers. They were slaves, but not as the capacity that we're taught. See, you got to analyze everything with a critical thinking, with the critical mind. Okay. So I'm going to read off these institutions to you. 1811, McLean Hospital in Boston. 1862, Bloomingdale Insane Asylum in New York. 1841, Pennsylvania Hospital. 1844, Kirkbride Insane Asylum, Philadelphia. 1851, Stockton State Hospital in California. 1875, Napa State Insane Asylum, California. Well, shit. Here we go. The rest of the list is California. Listen to this shit. Okay. Napa State Insane Asylum, Agnes State Hospital, Mendocino State Asylum, State Lunatic Asylum. Oh, Arkansas. Okay. Patton State Hospital, California, Sonoma Development Center, California. California just bum rushed a lot of tribes and threw people in there. I'm telling you, this facility was specifically for children, but how a child could have been diagnosed with mental illness during this period is beyond me. Okay. So they did a lot of shit. I'm just telling you. So it says the Napa State Insane Asylum had a fully functioning underground railway system, 7 Gothic style towers, took only 3 years to apparently build, which we know that's bullshit because it was already there, and was home to over 500 inmates. By 1920, approximately 45,000 people had lived and died there, yet only 4,368 bodies were ever found. And just, okay, get this, and just over, let's go down this page. 1 second. Oh, wait, you know what? Let me see. Do they have any pictures over here? I'll show you. They have a lot of pictures in here, but let me get back to this part. I want to get back to this part. He cuts it off and he goes right into, let's see. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Here's this last part. So he says, here's the bodies. Let me read that again. By 1920, approximately 45,000 people had lived there and died. Yet only 4,368 bodies were ever found. And just 5,000 more had been cremated. Okay, so you got about 9,500 people, right? And then it says, so where did everyone else go? Did they go underground to the reptilians and be consumed? I'm just saying, we don't know. I'm just telling you. Between the facility, it wasn't alone with its magnificence. Literally all of the asylums I had listed, as well as the most of the others, founded, quote unquote, they were founded because they found them there empty, right? And they took over and repurposed them, and they scooped all these people up who weren't on board, right? so they were founded during the same period, were built with incredible skill and craftsmanship. But why would the state go to such extraordinary lengths to design and build these incredible Greco-Roman Gothic style mansions simply to house the very people they wanted to be removed from society? Okay. The cost involved and time taken to erect marble pillars, landscape beautiful gardens and grounds, as well as interior design that would rival any stately home or palace in the Northern Hemisphere would have been immense. Okay. It is also worth noting that at the very same time, the settlers were building and living in this quite basic wooden houses. So you see, they give you these two different narratives, and this shit doesn't add up, right? 1 + 1 does not equal 5. All right. It just doesn't. And what they're telling us, if you start to look at the history, it's got holes in it and it doesn't make sense. And you just really have to analyze what we've been taught, right? So, and now it says here, so at the very same time, they had settlers come in and out the boat, all right, that were building and living in these quite basic, quote unquote, wooden homes, right? So I know you guys have seen all the pictures, like, let's see, I think there was one I shared like several months ago in London, where you had these beautiful big buildings and then you had these shitty little shacks like right underneath them, and they were built on top of mud, right? That's because they were repurposing the cities and they were digging the cities out. And so when they had people coming over, right, they built these little crappy ass wooden homes. So this is the narrative that they give you, right? So they had the settlers living in a basic wooden house while they had these big, beautiful homes. So they said they even only had horse and buggies as a mode of transportation and worked with basic hand tools. So there's no way they could have built these beautiful buildings. They were already here. Isn't it remarkable? But these settlers just happened to be master stonemasons and sculptors with more money and time at their disposal than they knew what to do with. Compounding this further is the fact that most, if not all of the towns and cities in America had burnt to the ground during the same time and had to be rebuilt. And that's where you get the fires, the floods, the earthquakes. Then you got the comet of 1811, all this devastation going on, right? And then you have these cities that are just empty because there were a lot of people that were unalived. And the people that survived, we knew then to go underground. We knew then to take shelter in certain regards, but there were a lot of people that didn't. A lot of people didn't make it. They were unalive. Just like what happened last month in Camp Mystic, where the children were sleeping and then this huge wall of water comes through and just washes everybody away. Same thing happened here. I can't tell you how many towns that have lakes and rivers and tributaries have bodies buried underneath. They flooded whole towns to make dams, you guys. That's a whole nother conspiracy. I'm not even going to say conspiracy. It's a fact because it's listed. If you go look it up, you'll be able to see how many towns were flooded with melanated people here in the Americas. I'm just telling you, it's staggering when you start to look at the shit. And it makes you angry when you see it because it's like the average person doesn't even care about it anymore. You know, I can hear my brothers and sisters now, my melanated brothers and sisters, well, why we care about that stuff? Them people are long gone and they dead. Well, you should care because the same shit gonna happen to us. Just saying. Make it make sense. So then this last part here, it says, compounding this further, the fact that most, if not all of these towns and cities in America had burned to the ground during the same time and had to be rebuilt. So they were flooded and they were burned and they repurposed these buildings. All right. So it says, to conclude this chapter, I stress again that the only logical explanation is that these buildings were remains of the Tartarian Empire and everyone in them was a citizen of the old world. That simply couldn't or wouldn't comply to the changes enforced by the New World Order and the parasites. All right. So that's what asylums were used for. All right. Now, I'm going to show you a picture and we're going to get into prisons when I come back. And we're also going to get into the Cabbage Patch Babies because I'm going to show you some pictures of these babies. And incidentally, I'm 56. Back in the 70s, I found a box of cards that my aunt had. Okay. We were cleaning out stuff in the country. Aunt Mabel had it. And I looked through the box and I was like, what are these babies on here for? And I saw pretty postcards. They were really pretty colored postcards. They had color, full color. and there were postcards of babies, and they were pale skinned babies. And to be honest with you, I didn't see any melanated Cabbage Patch babies at the time when I was looking at the box, because I thought the babies were so pretty. I really did. And back then, it wasn't a thing where you would have, quote unquote, a melanated doll. Like the baby dolls I had were light skinned. They were white. I'll just put it to you that way. They were white. It wasn't that many dolls that back then at that time where they had, you had more of a choice, right? So I saw the babies on the postcards and I was like, oh, those are so pretty. Fat little chubby babies, naked, rosy cheeks. And I kept the cards for a long time. Had I have known that they were going to be worth something like right now where I could pull them out and show you guys, I wish I would have kept them. I really wish I would have kept them, because it would be something, Mind Unveiled has a book, and I'm going to show you pictures. But before I close up, I want to show you this back of this dollar bill right now, because I don't have any ones on me. I have $20, I think. Several $20 bills, a couple of hundreds. But I don't have any ones. But look at this. I'm just going to hold this up. Take a screenshot of this, or if you've got a $1 bill, go look at the back of it. Look. It says, it quite frankly says the New World Order on the back of the dollar bill. So this is where they introduced the currency. This is where they introduced the fiat currency. And it's where you have the banking cartels, the Rothschilds, the Askenans, those who say they are, I ain't going to say the word, you know what I'm saying? Those who say they are, but are not. I'm just telling you, everything's starting to put a puzzle piece together, and I hope you guys can see that. So we finished up chapter 10. All right, I just gave you some breadcrumbs over the asylums and, what they were used for, what happened with these people. And I'm going to wrap it up and show you a couple of these pictures. I think I showed you some of them, but I really want to show you these right here. So you've got some babies in a field here. And then you've got what's left over the Hiroshima bombing and date of the last reset, 1776 reset, Argyll, Scotland. So look at this. So, and here. And then look at this. Here's Hiroshima. This is the bombing. Look at the buildings. I'm just telling you, there was a massive they just destroyed 1,000 years added to this building in Naples, Italy. He circled it in the book. Look. Here and here, where they added 1,000 years. They just mysteriously added 1,000 years onto our timeline. I'm telling you, it's not 2025. It's actually like 1017 right now. It's actually 1017. I kid you not. They really did a lot. I'm telling you, when you start to look at this shit, you be like, holy shit. What have they not touched? I'm serious. And then, they repainted. I talked to you about photoshopping and how they repainted these pictures. When they created these books and the fake history that they gave us, they had to go in and whitewash a lot of that. And look at this. Look at the buildings. Those are Tartarian. So when you're looking at TV movies and TV shows on TV, start looking at when they do city, like when they pan out and do cities on some of the movies and TV shows. Start looking for the old buildings, because you'll see them. They're like right in front of our faces. We're like so grained in and not paying attention to it. Here's pictures of the obelisk. That's a whole story in itself. And look, here's some of the bells. And I actually came on here and showed you a video of the bells and how you could sign up for an organization to be emailed and to donate to refurbish some of the bells throughout the towns. Because there's some small towns that still have bells and they refurbish them. All right. I'm just saying, I'm a nerd like that. Here's some more pictures. Yeah. And then this is the last part I want to show you. This is what it looks like when you have the technology on top of the building as opposed to them removing it. This was what was once on the building right here. See these cathodes? And look, now do you see how we harness the power with all these damn wires and cables and stuff now, as opposed to it was on top of the buildings and they pulled it directly from the energy? This is just reusing this old technology, but they're able to charge us money for it. Like, we really should not be paying for lights and water and all that stuff. All this stuff should be free. It really should be, because it was just in the last 300 years, it was free. And now that they reconstructed everything, they got everybody buying into this bullshit. Here's another one. Look at this. This is in Kansas. Tartarian building. Look. And look here. So I'm just telling you. And then look at this one. It's all a common theme. It's all the previous civilization that was here that they wiped off the face of the planet. And they tried to wrap it up in a nice white bow. And they couldn't. And then here's on the streets, you can see the towers, the free energy towers. Look. Right here. It's not connected by anything. There's no cables, no wires, nothing. It was just standing free because it was pulling the energy from the ether. See, look. And here's the cathodes right here. They could harness the power. So I'm telling you, and then they had it coming in directly into the houses, like I read. They weren't paying for energy, and they could travel freely. They didn't have to have a passport. They didn't have to have any of this shit. You know, they could just get in the airship and go. You didn't have to report like where you were going. It was nothing like that. And then here, the last thing I want to show you is, and I know I've showed this before, the electric metal grid for the wireless vehicles that they had in New York and in Chicago and all the major cities. They had a metal grate underneath on the road. So when the cars rode over it, that's how they harnessed the power from the ether, right? Look, see the grids? Look at the road. See? And then of course they laid cement and concrete. Some cases they dug it up and they destroyed it, but a lot of times they just laid concrete, poured concrete directly over it. So no one's the wiser now, right? No one is the wiser. So, and then this is the fireplace that was just like at my house when I was a little kid growing up. The house was built in the early 1900s. Here's the fireplace, how flat it was. So you didn't burn wood in there. You didn't. The energy came through the fireplace. So simply telling you, that's how they did it. And then they had moving sidewalks back in the 1800s. Look at this shit. Airports. Same shit. There's women walking on it. And look at the building. Tartarian. Yeah, so it's right in front of our faces. Hidden in plain sight. All right, you guys, I'm taking enough of your time. I just wanted to come on here and just show you a little bit and talk to you a little bit about the asylums. And when I come back, we're going to talk about the prisons, and then we're going to get right into the Cabbage Patch Babies and what they did with the orphans and how they brainwashed people. Okay, because you got to remember, we had the technology to have incubators back then. So yes, they were harvesting and growing children. And they also had these children that they took for orphanages at a young age, and they were having babies by these girls, and they were hot. It was like a breeding farm. I'm telling you, when you really start to look at the information, it's very disturbing, and it's sad because a lot of people are not privy to this information. They really don't understand. And today you still have child sex trafficking and pedophilia that piggybacks off of all this stuff. And you've got pedophiles in high places. Like, I'm serious. They're in all seats of government, corporations, judicial systems, law enforcement. You've got a lot of pedophiles that are walking around right now that are partaking still in this shit. I'm just telling you. And it's very sad that the average person really can't grasp the brevity of what these MFers have done. Seriously, no conspiracy. This is a fact. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this has been beneficial, eye-opening, and hope to pique your curiosity where you go out. Pick up Guy's book. I can recommend this as well as other books that you can put together and layer it and start your research. All right. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I'll talk to you soon.